Good evening. I hope you and your family are staying well in the midst of this crisis we all face. Tonight, officials in the San Francisco Bay Area are imposing the most extreme anti-coronavirus measures we've seen in this country. It's a shelter-in-place order. 7 million people told to stay at home and away from others for the next 3 weeks. It comes as the federal government called on all of us to limit gatherings to 10 people. Bars and restaurants ordered close in many places. And another eye-watering plunge on Wall Street today. There is so much to get to with our team. Miguel Almaguer starts us off.
Tonight, the San Francisco Bay Area, just hours away from the unprecedented order. 7 million people told to go home and stay home for 3 weeks, starting at midnight. The move aimed at bringing bustling city streets to a virtual standstill and closing nearly all businesses, the most dramatic and drastic step in the country.
These measures will be disruptive to day-to-day life, but there is no need to panic.
While the president said a nationwide quarantine is not under consideration for now, he did urge Americans to stay away from groups larger than 10 people.
No matter where you look, this is something, it's an invisible enemy.
The president predicting the virus could spread through summer. At subways, city stations, and iconic venues, more are keeping their distance. The White House with this new warning.
The reason we're taking these strong and bold steps is because we know there is virus spread before you develop symptoms.
As a growing number of cities, including New York and LA, ban restaurants and bars from seating customers, delivery service and drive-thrus are becoming the only options. Theaters, gyms, and a long list of several major retailers are shuttered, while brands like Starbucks are only open for pickups.
A burger, a veggie melt, and an ice cream sandwich?
Yep.
One fine dining restaurant in Seattle now delivering burgers.
This is about feeding a city that is hungry.
With fear driving some to hoard food, many grocery stores are operating on modified hours, allowing older shoppers in at earlier times. But in California, the governor says anyone 65 or older should self-isolate at home. For thousands, getting home was the problem. At O'Hare International, massive crowds trickled through enhanced screenings for the coronavirus.
I definitely felt unsafe. If the government's telling me to stay in groups of less than 50 and keep social distancing, that was the opposite.
As school districts in cities big and small close down, a dozen hotels and casinos on the Las Vegas Strip are set to go dark. Primary voting in Ohio has been postponed, as a symbol of America is now closed on Liberty Island. Lisa Merck, a nurse in Colorado, is recovering from the virus.
I started getting really sweaty, and then I felt like I kind of wanted to collapse. And I remember having this burning sensation, when you take a deep breath.
Tonight, Americans in uncharted territory, changing the way we gather and the cities we live in.
The legal order in the San Francisco Bay Area to go home and stay home does not impact essential businesses like grocery stores. The public can still go outside and go to essential services, but this was a major move by a big city. It's likely the first, but not the last. Lester?
Yeah, it got everybody's attention. Miguel Almaguer in California, thanks. President Trump acknowledging today the virus is not under control any place in the world. NBC's Jeff Bennett is at the White House with more on that.
The Trump administration ramping up its response to the coronavirus as Americans brace for the outbreak's full fury. President Trump tonight releasing new guidelines for all Americans to follow over the next 15 days.
Each and every one of us has a critical role to play in stopping the spread and transmission of the virus.
They include closing schools in affected areas, avoiding discretionary travel, avoiding groups of 10 or more people, and working from home when possible.
No matter who you are, please stay home.
New procedures now in effect at the White House, too. A normally packed White House press briefing room sparse today. A new seating arrangement leaving every other seat open.
I'm glad to see that you're practicing social distancing. That looks very nice.
The president's comments, his most direct appeal yet for Americans to take the virus seriously. The new guidelines, an answer to calls from state officials for a stronger federal response.
I want federal guidance. This is a national pandemic, and there are no national rules.
The president tonight also addressing rumors that his administration may soon impose a countrywide quarantine, like the ones in Italy and Spain. Are you considering instituting a nationwide lockdown, a nationwide quarantine?
At this point, not nationwide, but well, there are some places in our nation that are not very affected at all. But we may look at certain areas, certain hotspots, as they call them. We'll be looking at that. But at this moment, no, we're not.
And President Trump said the coronavirus crisis could last through July or August. And when asked if the U.S. is headed toward a recession, he said it may be. Lester?
All right, Jeff, thanks. Also tonight, the administration insists it is dramatically increasing testing capabilities across the country, but some leading ER doctors warn the delay may already have dire consequences. Here's Tom Costello.
From Connecticut to Colorado, Ohio to Alabama, roughly a dozen states are now offering drive-through COVID-19 testing. Some people confused by special requirements for testing, like an appointment or a doctor's note. At Christiana Care Hospital in Delaware, they tested 536 people in just 4 hours.
One in one side of the nose and one in the other side, and then we put it inside the tube and we close it off and we send it with their individual information.
The White House says 2,000 labs will have the ability to conduct tests by sometime today, processing nearly 2 million tests by the end of the week. Each test could take hours or days to process, but across much of the country, frustration at the lack of tests and slow results. A Virginia man who returned from a trip to New York is now unconscious on a ventilator and in ICU. It took 3 days to get a positive test result.
Like he's sleeping, but, he's got all these tubes and he's on his stomach and they're just doing everything they can to keep him alive, but it's heartbreaking. I just want him to come home.
Mass General Emergency Physician Clayton Dalton says the delays will almost certainly have dire consequences.
I do think that these early failures will result in more people getting sick and more people dying than might otherwise have happened.
Hospitals across the country are now setting up triage tents to screen patients outside of the ER. New York Governor Cuomo calling for the Army Corps of Engineers to set up medical tents. The White House says facilities dedicated to treating COVID-19 patients are already under consideration. In hardest-hit states, the White House promises more drive and walk-through testing sites this week, able to screen up to 4,000 people per day.
I want it to be clear to everybody, this is just another tool for states and local public health systems and healthcare systems to use. It's not replacing testing that goes on in a doctor's office or in a hospital.
In the San Francisco area, Google has set up a pilot program to help identify people at highest risk and direct them to a local testing site.
Many of us can get this virus, and it could be mild or even no symptoms at all, but they can actually still give it to a friend or a loved one, and for them, their lungs.
Meanwhile, a vaccine clinical trial with 40 people began today in Seattle, though researchers caution it could take up to 18 months before a vaccine is approved and widely available.
Here in the Washington, D.C. area, more than 100 cases already, and Maryland's governor urgently looking for 6,000 hospital beds in the event of a surge in patients. Lester?
Yeah, there's a lot to take in here. Tom, thanks very much. And we want to turn now to the deepening impact on business. Wherever you live, companies large and small shutting down or scaling back in the critical effort to contain this virus. Gabe Gutierrez reports.
Tonight, an unprecedented shutdown, already a gut punch to workers coast to coast, from California to Illinois to New York.
I don't know financially how I'm going to pay my bills.
This is where the virus is spreading. So we had a responsibility to the public.
In many states, including Ohio, no more dine-in customers at bars and restaurants, only takeout and delivery orders.
They have to send out, and call everybody and say, hey, as of tonight, 9 o'clock, sign up for unemployment. We're all done here indefinitely. I mean, it's scary.
Many gyms and movie theaters will also close. Today in Teaneck, New Jersey, where the mayor had urged some 40,000 residents to self-quarantine, police officers went door to door, telling shop owners about the new restrictions.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Never in my life. I'm a grandfather, and I've never seen this before.
Doug Palsy and Frank Pinto own this restaurant in Newark. Business has dried up. No takeout orders here. They'll be forced to shut down entirely.
Does this feel like the new normal?
It's crazy. I hope not. I hope it's not the new normal.
it's like a nightmare that doesn't end.
That nightmare may just be beginning for the airlines. United is cutting routes by 50% for 2 months. Just look at deserted Reagan Airport this morning. The industry already talking to the federal government about a bailout.
If no action is taken by the government to shore up the system, it is possible that an airline could go under.
Today, another TSA officer tested positive for COVID-19 in Atlanta. Part of the international terminal was shut down this afternoon for cleaning. Lester?
Gabe Gutierrez here in New York. Thank you. On Wall Street, the worst day since 1987. The Dow losing almost 3,000 points, even after the Fed cut interest rates to near zero. Let's bring in senior business correspondent Stephanie Ruhle. Stephanie, what should people know about this stunning drop?
Lester, as the economic impact of the efforts to combat coronavirus sink in, today we saw the single biggest point drop in the Dow ever. Out of the gate this morning, markets tanked. Then late in the afternoon, when President Trump's press conference went on, the selling accelerated, effectively eliminating almost all of the gains made in the Dow since he took office. Now, usually when the Fed cuts rates, markets go up. But that is not why they cut rates. The rate cut now is about making sure the system keeps working, that businesses, large and small, are able to borrow money. The rate cuts will help many businesses stay afloat, but what they won't do is put more money in the tip jar for a whole lot of individual workers. Lester?
All right, Stephanie Ruhle, thank you. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here. And click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.